Satsang is the time meant for focusing on God, for remembering Him, for directing the mind toward the divine. It is important to cultivate within oneself the habit and love of listening, reflecting, and remembering the divine. Without this, any techniques or meditations become a mere formality, a mechanical action devoid of inner meaning. After performing techniques, fatigue may arise. Meditation may seem boring because it lacks a center, a magnetic power that would hold attention, inspire, and fill with meaning. Meditation can turn into a routine, demanding constant effort. There comes a sense that despite years of striving, there are no tangible results. This happens because true meditation is not founded on effort alone, but on attraction to the divine source. Effort is merely a starting mechanism. It cannot sustain practice permanently. It weakens, it fades. Without inner attraction, meditating is like trying to drive a car without starting the engine, relying only on the ignition. A constant center of attraction is necessary, a source in which one believes wholeheartedly, to which one is devoted, of which one thinks and which one praises. When attention is fixed upon it, when an inner connection is established, that source begins to bless, to pour grace, to inspire. Then meditation becomes easy, natural, filled with ananda, bliss. Worldly problems are perceived as a play, resolving themselves effortlessly, for their importance has receded. Everything is reduced to one thing, constant remembrance of God. That is the supreme matter. For this, one must listen and reflect much, not even much, but always. To reflect within one's heart upon the refuge, upon Bhagavan Dattatreya, upon one's Ishtadevata, upon the Guru, upon the Dharma, upon the Sangha, with faith, love, and devotion, with what we call pure vision, the spirit of Samaya. One imagines above the head the sacred assembly, the tree of refuge. Thus the mind is attuned to this supreme source. You have the opportunity to receive teachings from different lineages, both short and long, tracing back to great saints and to Bhagavan Dattatreya. Among them are the goddess Tara, Guru Brahmananda Maharaj, and many other saints and siddhas, as well as various non-dual teachings. The main condition is faith and alignment with the divine source. When this is present, it is important to learn to glorify in one's heart the refuge, the saints, the qualities of God, so that mind and heart may be filled with joy and reverence day and night. Instead of gossip, criticism, or condemnation, only glorification. If you are a sadhu, your practice is to attune to the saints, to the Guru, to the three jewels, to the source, and constantly to uplift your consciousness thereby. The task of Guru, Dharma, and Sangha is to inspire and to guide you, and the task of the disciple is to preserve pure vision. Criticism and slander break this. Even if the mind begins to doubt or to resist, it is important to remind oneself this is not its domain. The true practice is the praise of God and the divine. All else is secondary. If something within disagrees, then simply step back with respect, bow, and keep inner silence. In life, there are always things that do not please us. We live in samsara, not in heaven. But even in such situations, one should not generate negativity. Better simply to step aside, inwardly say, Namaste, and leave all as it is. Once the sage Vasishtha beheld the great goddess Kali, vast, with countless arms, tongue extended, bearing weapons that shook the cosmos. He bowed to her reverently from afar, not daring to approach. Such power inspired reverence, but not rejection, only respect. When inner silence and attentiveness are maintained, when no division arises between the outer source and inner perception, then blessings come naturally. This is the power of connection with the divine which awakens and sustains. All this is the art of thinking of God, of reflecting on God. We must learn this art. Then material problems no longer disturb you. The outer world no longer impresses you, for God is within me. When the most important thing for you becomes thinking of God, glorifying God, you become saints, or nearly saints. Worship, offerings to one's refuge, seeking protection in it. These are methods that strengthen faith. When with body, speech, and mind we serve our refuge, serve God, serve the embodiment of divine will, freedom, and power, we open ourselves, we become vessels, conduits of the divine, and this incredibly strengthens our spiritual force. It is one thing to be a conduit of one's little self, and quite another to be a conduit of the divine will. These are completely different realities. The little self is limited. It desires almost nothing. It can do almost nothing. What does the little self want? A bit of comfort? A bit of entertainment? It dreams of nothing greater. But if you're a conduit of the divine will, you can do everything. All you need is to serve the divine will. Consider Joan of Arc, a small woman, yet she inspired great warriors and commanders by the power of faith, changed the course of history. She was a conduit of the divine will. Through her, the divine acted. Therefore, during Satsang, we strive to attune ourselves to the divine source. This alignment we call contemplation or being in the divine presence. Too often we dwell in the presence of our thoughts. There is us, and there are thoughts. Or the presence of emotions, hunger, thirst. We experience anger, desire. We often dwell in the presence of our ego. Here we are, and the ego is present too, compelling us toward pride, vanity, attachment. Yet none of this is true presence. To be in the presence means to be in the presence of the divine source. To feel the presence of the divine source in contemplation, we must separate ourselves from body, thoughts, feelings, even from ego. One must learn not to choose, not to desire, not to ask, not to want. The moment we choose, ask, desire, want, the divine says, "Very well, it shall be as you will. You will receive it all, but you will miss the most essential." There is such a story. A man once asked God to give him a choice after death, to go to heaven, to hell, or elsewhere. After death, an angel came and asked whether he preferred heaven or hell. The man chose heaven, but was told that first he had to pass through hell for only 1 week to cleanse himself before living in heaven for 50,000 years. Though the term in hell was short, the suffering was so intense that the week felt like eternity, and life in heaven passed by like a moment. When his time in heaven was over, the angel again asked which he preferred. Then the man realized one should not choose between extremes, but accept whatever God gives, without preference. For any preference creates inner duality and suffering. The true path of liberation is the equal acceptance of all things, the one taste toward everything that arises. Do not choose. By creating choice in the mind, you create weakness, you become vulnerable, you overestimate reality, you fail to trust God. When you trust God, God will choose for you in the best way, will grant you what is best. If there is no clinging, no hope, no fear. This does not mean that in everyday life you cannot have inclinations or preferences. You may enjoy boiled potatoes or tomatoes. Your body may have its likes. That is not important. Eat and be healthy. We are speaking of spiritual life. By renouncing attachments, renouncing the tendencies of the ego, you receive in return immense power. You will feel how this power grows within you. This is non-attachment, vairagya. When you cultivate in yourself the immense force of vairagya, no tendency, no inclination will be able to shake you, for you will be blessed by the Lord Himself. The Lord delights in vairagya, delights in the consciousness of non-attachment and the one taste. Saints exerted immense effort to subdue the ego, to subdue the mind, to attain the state of vairagya. Any food, they were content. Any clothing, they were content. In any place on earth, they were content. In any social status, they were content. What austerities they undertook to achieve this. It is a great blessing to attain such a mind, detached, free, unchoosing. All beings in the universe are bound, tied by their karma. The gods are bound to pleasures, the asuras to combativeness, the hungry spirits to dissatisfaction of mind, the beings of hell to infernal states, the animals to dullness. Precisely because they are bound, they fall into those realms. The tendency of all beings is to be attached to something. Human beings are bound through the anahata chakra. When you transcend these attachments, you become free of samsara. Spiritual strength comes through non-attachment and awareness when attachment is replaced by choiceless awareness. When a tendency arises in a person, it is helpful to do the opposite, seeing it, to consciously act in a contrary way. Such practice grants great inner strength. Teachers often advise their disciples to take on difficult tasks and carry them through with the power of will. This cultivated their spiritual energy, Icha Shakti. Some saints and siddhas taught precisely this, acting against one's natural tendencies. One must fear tendencies and attachments, for they are a deception, a sweet poison, and a beautiful wrapping. It seems that following them will bring the blossoming of the soul, but behind one side there is always the other, the duality. For example, if you love sweets, you automatically have aversion to salty. By nurturing one side, you enter into relation with the opposite, which will appear in another form. What you deny or fear comes to you by any means and pursues you until karma is resolved. Often people create ideals in consciousness, but the subconscious creates their antipodes, which also have power. Ideal and antithesis walk together by the laws of karma, and often the antithesis is stronger. What you fear and reject comes into your life precisely because much energy is invested in it. This concerns not only relationships, but also fears of illness, misfortune. Fear attracts them. The more you fear, the stronger they manifest. But if you accept all as it is, cling to nothing, say to yourself that any situation is favorable, then harmony with the universe arises. Everything evens out. One taste appears. The state where there is no fear and no desire, no aversion and no attachment. Thus arises the spirit of Vairagya, the spirit of the Siddhas, the spirit of the saints. If you strongly love discipline and order and strive in every way to maintain them, then the antithesis of this attachment will be chaos and disorder. To balance this, the keepers of karma will place you in such situations until you recognize the cause and free yourself of such a tendency. Never be discontent with life. Never complain of life. If you are discontent and complain, it means you do not remember God. It means you are bereft of God. It means you are unhappy. You have the opportunity to be blessed, but you miss it. And all that remains is to be dissatisfied and to complain. In moments of dissatisfaction, immediately begin to praise God, to glorify Him, to feel His presence. The cause of dissatisfaction lives only in the mind. Outside, there are no causes of dissatisfaction, only in the mind. And the mind is but a lost child that must be directed home to its source. But we often forget this and begin to seek the cause of dissatisfaction in the external world, in other people, in circumstances. The path to pure vision, the path to one taste, is to see in everything the grace of the divine, in everything the will of the divine, in everything the blessing of the divine. Pure vision is when our bhava is exalted, when our soul is not closed off because of an undesirable situation. Any situation is a blessing. There are peaceful blessings, neutral blessings, wrathful blessings, but still they are blessings. A car splashes you with muddy water. This is also a fierce blessing. If a priest or sadhu passes by and censes you with incense, greeting you, Namaste, Om Namo Narayana, this is a peaceful blessing. If a merchant gives you a banana, this is a neutral blessing for your money. Learn to recognize these three kinds of blessings: peaceful, neutral, fierce, in all phenomena. This will immediately make your life mystical, a life as blessing. Then there will be only blessings, pure vision, remembrance of God, and praise of the divine. This arises naturally. Here is born Samarasya, the one taste. One taste means to see everything as God, as the divine, as Brahman. It is not indifference. Some seekers fall into indifference, into a kind of spiritual weariness. They have read everything, listened to everything, tried everything, yet the soul has not opened. This is not one taste and not Vairagya, this is spiritual apathy. It is a dangerous place for a sadhu. There is no exaltation there, no flight, no inspiration. One must come out of such a state. One must open the heart, remove the ego, break the rigid fixations of the mind, pray, bow. Sooner or later, blessing will arise, the soul will open, and spiritual cynicism will leave. The closeness of the soul will depart, and you will dwell in Ananda. You will be in the divine. You will bathe in the divine. The sadhu must beware of spiritual cynicism and spiritual apathy. Ananda does not come at once. It comes after several years of practice. Usually at the beginning of the path, the sadhu experiences delight. He is enraptured by Dharma, Guru, Sangha, by practice. Everything fills him with inspiration. Everything goes easily, and he feels deep joy in practice. But in time, under the influence of karma, of planets, of subtle errors or deviations in method, his inner state gradually fades. Spiritual apathy arises, a condition of detachment where practice loses taste. In such moments it is important to awaken within the inner deity, to restore devotion, love, compassion, inspiration, ecstasy. This is the manifestation of the spirit of samaya. Often the decline begins with barely noticeable deviations, which a person may not even realize immediately. Many seekers remain stuck in this state for a long time, and this becomes the cause of their spiritual dissatisfaction. But always nearby, there exists another dimension, the living, the awakened. If a person feels such a state approaching, he should seek blessing from the saints, from the refuge, from the Ishta Devata, from his guru. Faith and glorification of the divine can melt karma, dispel illusion, and bring the blessings of the gods. Life is given to the soul for the glorification of the divine, not for sinking into trifles.